Good morning and welcome. I am Adriana Rodriguez, Research Associate at Climate Strategy and Partners. I would like to thank you all for participating in this webinar, which is part of the International Chamber of Commerce Conference, Make Climate Action Everyone's Business. This conference is held parallel to COP27 and is a very timely webinar today because it is Energy Day at COP27, and we will be exploring the efforts to mobilize the energy and ecological transition of a fundamental pillar of our economies, small and medium enterprises. More specifically, we are going to focus on a project led by Climate Strategy in Spain, a country highly hit by the energy crisis where companies are struggling with skyrocketing electricity bills. As you can see in the agenda, we're going to have introductory remarks from ICC Spain, a key partner in this project. The Spanish Climate Change Office will then provide us its governmental perspective on its measures needed to mobilize climate action in SMEs, and it will be followed by a presentation of the SME Climate Hub, a global initiative that puts into practice this mobilization. Climate Strategy will then present a report that we launched today in English after a consultation process with Spanish SMEs that explored, among other things, their ambition to join global decarbonization efforts like the SME Climate Hub. Finally, we will listen to a panel of leading Spanish SMEs and we will conclude with a call to action from the Climate Reality Project. Any questions you may have, please write them in the chat. Now, I would like to give the word to Jordi Sellarès, Secretary General of ICC Spain for the last 10 years. Welcome, Jordi.
Welcome. Thank you very much for the introduction. And very briefly, because I have just to offer a sort of institutional welcome. I'm very glad to cooperate with Climate Strategy in this effort. And I think I should explain that ICC has always been interested in environmental issues since the beginning, when the first international conference in Stockholm in 1973 took place. 1 month before that, the International Chamber of Commerce arranged a meeting of business in order to prepare for a common position on that international conference. And ICC Spain sent somebody to that event that I said was a month before the big international event. Later on, in the Rio de Janeiro 1992, in Kyoto 1996, and all the conference of the parties, that is the COP events that have taken place till the next one in 27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, ICC has taken a special role in trying to gather the position of business in order to be able to cooperate and to offer something in order to make business work in this new environment of concerns about climate change. I must say too that ICC has had in the beginning 2 commissions, that is one for environment, one for energy, but in 2002 they melted both commissions into one single one, which is the one that is providing for the input for all these efforts that ICC is arranging in all these COP conferences. ICC was, for instance, in Madrid in 2019, in Glasgow last year, and will be in Sharm el-Sheikh at the end of this year. So just that. Thank you very much for being here. I am very convinced that SMEs can contribute very efficiently to the efforts of the COP and the desire to limit the climate change. And I am sure that the different summaries or videos that you're going to listen will be very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jordi, for this introduction and your support to our project in Spain. Now, I want to welcome Valvanera Ulargui, Director General of the Spanish Climate Change Office since 2015, who is going to provide us the governmental perspective on SMEs climate action. Welcome, Valvanera.
Thank you very much, Adriana. It is a pleasure to be here today in the presentation of this report, a report that helps us to move forward the climate agenda and to move forward all the companies around the world to make a reality this transformation. A report also which messages I fully share. We cannot advance, we cannot be climate and energy neutral or transition to climate and to an energy world if we don't count with all of you. So I'm very happy to be in this side event And I think that it really shows the reality that we are living, that companies all around the world, the small size and medium size companies, wanted to be part of the solution. All the points in the report and all the conclusions that you make are very relevant in these complex times. I would like to highlight some of them that I find very helpful for the COP27. The first one is the significant awareness of the Spanish SMEs about the risk of climate change, especially due to the dependency of fossil fuels. I think that this is a message that we need to highlight, and in a positive way. We are not backsliding in Europe because of the war, because of the flexibility of some energy measures. The other way around, we have seen that we need to go further and faster in order to make the energy transition in this decade. So this is very, very important message I would like to remark, and taking advantage of the conclusion of the report to highlight to all of you. Also, the second message is about the opportunities the ecological transition and the development of robust climate plans brings to the general economy, and it's very related to the first one. That realize and that puts in front of us the necessity and the urgency to move and to move forward, not only because of the general economy, not only because of Europe and the rest of the world, but more importantly because of the economic performance of the SMEs themselves in this new and changing atmosphere. I also think that it's important to highlight that we need to ensure more ambition through concrete commitments. When we are talking about climate change, when we are talking about the multiple crises we are suffering, we are all convinced, no, that there is a real action on the territories, on the lands, on the companies. But we need to accompany that with concrete commitments. And I say that because we have seen at government level, but also at company level, that a lot of progress has been made. It's incredible since Paris, you know, how many institutions, companies, small, big, from the financial sector, from the primary sector, have made progress on the plans and the projections to be climate neutral. But we need concrete actions, concrete goals, concrete targets, and concrete indicators for the years to come. And when I say for the years to come, is for 2023 at the latest, because otherwise we will be out of the window of opportunity that the IPCC is marking us. And as I said at the beginning, these messages reflects in this report are particularly important and useful for this very moment in COP27. We are in the middle of the most important negotiations on climate, and we need clear signals to the outside world and to ourselves also to increase this ambition and to be climate proof in the coming years. When we talk about acceleration, when we talk about a 1.5, and when we talk about alignment with this is 1.5, we need the companies, we need the small, medium companies. We need in Spain these companies because they are part of our society, but they are a big part of this society. No, we cannot lose sight of the direction of travel because of the different crises that we are living. Because taking a shortcut right now, you know, will be more costly in the medium and in the long term. So I think that to make this possible, to go in the right direction, to not take shortcuts, you know, on fossil fuel energies that will complicate a lot, you know, the survival of our economy and of our societies, we need to go together. We need to have alignment and collaboration in all the action and all the plans that we are putting on the table in our different responsibilities. The importance of integrating the variable in a broad sense of the climate change in a specific roadmaps, as I said, to guarantee growth, to guarantee competitiveness, and to guarantee the modernization of our companies, will really be rewarded. It's not a coincidence that the companies with the highest ratings are the ones preferred by investors, and are those the ones that integrate the ESG criteria very, very concretely in their business plan. So we are here, to make this way a reality in all the ecosystem, and to minimize the impacts, and to ensure that when we are talking about environment, we are talking about economy, and we are talking about justice, climate justice at social level. So the focus on a small and medium enterprises system, it's really a key goal for us, and the report illustrates, very, very clearly that they are part of the problem, but they are part of the solution. That is the more important message. It is estimated that 50% of the Spanish greenhouse gas emissions come from the activities of these companies, but it is also illustrated that all the co-benefits and all the win-win options, to go for a transition as far as possible, will have not only economic sense, but also, as I said, a very good impact on the environment, and also in our citizens, that are the ones, who are very close to you. Forward-looking companies can mobilize resources, can mobilize innovation, and can mobilize action. And we are very, very, very aware that we, from the government perspective, need to put on the table clear frameworks, need to put on the table money for that clear frameworks, and need to put also on the table the security that this path of decarbonization that we envisage in our legal frameworks are going to be happen. So this is crystal clear from this government. We have been working on that direction, but it's also very, very important that companies like you work hand in hand on that, because you have an enormous potential as drivers of change by operating in areas that are closest to the consumers, and you have the capacity to innovate. We have the big ones that can influence in a big network, but we really need, the small companies to make this change a reality. The way that we are approaching the climate and the energy transition, it's very clear. We have already adopted a law. We have already adopted budgets that are putting, more than 30% of the public money on projects that will innovate on climate, that will innovate on energy, that will innovate in renewables, that will innovate in just transition. And we also have put on the table some homeworks, for the private sector that are legally binding by law. So to calculate and publish the carbon footprint, to disclosure very, very transparently where you are putting or where you are wanting to invest. And this is with the only goal, as I said at the beginning, to increase in competitiveness and to increase in a model that have economic sense and that will create more jobs. That is the way we are working. We are also working on public procurement criteria, and we also trying to reconduct all the money from the next generation coming from Brussels to the recovery to accelerate this transition that we have already envisaged by law. some messages for closing and also some words for hope. I think that with a view to work in this upward spiral of action and commitments from the Spanish private sector, we are accountable government. We want to facilitate as much as possible with our legally instruments. We want to facilitate as much as possible with all the public finance, and we want to have this new energy model, this new ecological model, to become the new norm in all our countries. So please count on us. Congratulations for the efforts made. Congratulations for the willingness to be part of this transition. And I'm very happy, to share with you these words and to be part of this event and congratulate for the report once more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Valvanera, for your contribution to today's webinar. I will give the word now to Pamela Joven, Director of the SME Climate Hub since its launch in 2021, so she can explain to us how this initiative is trying to mobilize SMEs all over the world.
Thank you very much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here to introduce the SME Climate Hub, which, as Adriana said, is a global initiative. It's a joint effort of 3 nonprofits, the We Mean Business Coalition, the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, and the United Nations Race to Zero campaign. So let's start maybe with a bit of an elevator pitch. What is the SME Climate Hub really? So the hub has been designed as a one-stop shop, so a single platform where SMEs can find all that they need to start taking action on climate. So that includes a commitment that they can make that is aligned with science, with the 1.5 degree goal of the Paris Agreement. And by making this commitment, SMEs can join the Race to Zero campaign managed by the United Nations. The hub is the key entry point for small and medium-sized enterprises to join the race. But on the hub, these small businesses can also find free best-in-class tools to measure their emissions, but also take action and report progress. We'll see in a minute what these tools look like. And we're also working with a very broad ecosystem of partners to create incentives for SMEs to really encourage them to join the race and to start taking action on climate. Now, if we take a bit of a step back, I always find it helpful to provide a bit of context on SMEs and why they are important when it comes to the climate. So SMEs obviously play a key role at local level as part of local communities, but they're also really crucial when it comes to global supply chains. They make up 90% of businesses worldwide, really. And we also know that they're very vulnerable when it comes to climate. So half of them never reopen after a disaster. So there's really a need to support them, to make sure that they're not left behind in the transition to net zero. And finally, we also know that SMEs tend to face very specific challenges because they're small, they're stretched, so they don't have many resources, the capacity to take on additional projects. Many of them feel that they lack the skills and knowledge to take action, or even just the incentives. And this is why we created the hub, really, to make sure that SMEs can fully reap the benefits of climate action. Obviously, you can see some of these benefits on this slide. They go from gaining a competitive advantage to improving efficiency in their business, which often means cutting costs. But it also includes managing risk for these small businesses and simply growing their brand, making sure that they can navigate the shifting expectations of consumers, buyers, investors, even governments who are now passing new regulations. So it's really a way to make sure that they're fit for the future. Now, let's have a closer look at the platform itself and see what it looks like. We've designed a specific user journey for SMEs to make things as accessible as possible for them. So when they go onto the platform, we walk them through these 3 steps that you see here. First of all, we highlight specific tools that we've designed specifically for smaller businesses to help them understand where they stand, their emissions, but also what climate action means for them. Once they've taken this first step, we encourage them to make this public commitment that allows them to join the Race to Zero. And once they make the commitment, this unlocks additional tools and incentives for them to use. So let's unpack this a little bit and start with the commitment. We've tried to keep this as simple as possible, once again, for small and medium-sized businesses. So the SME Climate Commitment has 3 main components that you see here. It's about halving green gas emissions before 2030, achieving net zero before 2050, and also disclosing progress on an annual basis starting from 18 months after SMEs make the commitment. So that's one of the steps. But if we have a look at the tools themselves, this is what they look like. We have a business carbon calculator that we developed with Normative and with support from google.org. Very simple resource. It only asks simple questions to businesses about their company, number of employees, whether they use vehicles, machinery, and it also uses spend data, so transaction data from SMEs to provide estimates of their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, which is quite unique. And similar to all our other tools, this is completely free of charge. A second tool that we've developed for SMEs is Climate Fit. It's a climate education course for smaller businesses developed with another set of really high-level partners, including BSR and the University of Cambridge. And I usually call it Climate Action 101 for a small business because it covers everything from strategy and governance all the way to operations, supply chains, product design, even employee engagement and communication, so that SMEs can really understand what climate action means for them. And with the same 2 partners, we've developed another resource, which is the financial support guide that's available on the hub. It's a high-level resource to help businesses understand where they can get financial support. Obviously, the setup will vary a lot from one country to the other and one sector to the other. But with this guide, they can identify the different types of stakeholders that they can reach out to. So whether it's governments, banks, big buyers, and also how they can approach these conversations to get the support that they need. And similar to Climate Fit, it's a very interactive resource with case studies, email templates. In Climate Fit, we also have videos. So once again, we're trying to make this as accessible as possible for SMEs. These are not the only tools on the platform. We have others. We have an external library, a library of external tools that is created by Oxford University that brings together other tools and resources created by organizations that we're either in partnership with or that we know of, tools that we think could help SMEs go even deeper in their climate action journey if they have the time to do so. We're also literally about to launch a reporting tool for SMEs that's based on a simplified framework that we developed with CDP. And this is going to be a really key tool for SMEs to communicate their progress to their key stakeholders, again, buyers or banks, for example, that they're looking to work with. And last but not least, in the coming months, we'll also be launching a set of action models, so specific models that will help SMEs identify which actions to prioritize based on their emissions profile. So again, to simplify their journey as much as possible. But the hub is not only a platform. Obviously, all the tools that we have on the website are key. The SME Climate Commitment really sits at the core of what we do, but we wouldn't be able to support SMEs without our ecosystem of partners. Now, as I said at the beginning, we're a global initiative, so we work with partners on a global level. We have 4 categories of partners there. obviously some strategic partners that are helping us develop the hub, but we also work closely with corporates, global businesses that are committed to reducing emissions in their supply chains. And these include the 1.5 supply chain leaders, a group of very well-known brands who are committed to halving their emissions by 2030 and really focusing on their scope 3 emissions, so emissions in their supply chains. And we're working with some of them to see how they can use the hub as a supplier engagement tool. But we also have outreach partners, so large global networks and media organizations who are helping us spread the word about the hub, making sure that small businesses are aware of the support that we can provide. And finally, we're also starting to work a lot with networks and institutional partners to make sure that the SME Climate Hub is seen as a bit of a reference in this space, so as a gold standard for climate action that can also facilitate ecosystem collaboration. The one thing that we want to avoid is for SMEs to have to deal with too many different frameworks or reporting standards or requests from their buyers or investors. So we want to harmonize the space, and we hope that we'll be able to do this with our partners. And this is what's happening at a global level. But increasingly, we're also taking more of a local approach, because we know that SMEs are often rooted into their local communities and that it's easier to reach out to them through organizations that they're already familiar with. And we've done this in a number of countries already, launching specific campaigns targeting the local SME communities. We started in the UK with support from the UK government before COP26. We recently launched a campaign in the United States, joining forces with America is All in the country. And we're now also starting to work in India with local partners, or in Latin America with the Inter-American Development Bank. And finally, as you can see here, we're also working hard on developing our presence in Spain with a set of fantastic local partners in the country. So this is it on the hub. I guess this is a good segue into the next presentation that's going to focus a little bit more on the Spanish ecosystem. But thanks again for having me here. And I will definitely encourage you to check out the hub if you haven't already. And I hope that if you're an SME, you'll be joining our community very soon.
Thank you, Pamela. After your insightful presentation, I would like to welcome Peter Sweetman, CEO of Climate Strategy, who has more than 30 years of experience in the energy, financial, business, climate, and low-carbon technology sector. He has been attending COPs since Copenhagen, and he represented the G20 Energy Efficiency Finance Task Group in the groundbreaking COP21 in Paris. Peter is going to present to us today the key findings of our project with Spanish SMEs.
Thank you, Adriana, and thank you very much, Valvanera and Pamela, for your opening words. I really wanted to now bring the conversation down to the detailed or micro level as an illustration as to what's happening in Spain. So before I do that, I of course wanted to let you know, in addition to what Adriana has provided, that my firm, Climate Strategy and Partners, which I lead, is an SME. We're based in Spain, and we've worked with a number of large Spanish businesses and international businesses over time that you can see shown here. And that this project is not just executed by us, but has had the support of the International Chamber of Commerce in Spain, the Spanish Green Growth Group, the SME Climate Hub in Spain, the Climate Reality Project, who you'll hear from to close this session, and 11 specific supporters who've organized webinars for us to reach out and touch the different regions of Spain and different SMEs, and a group of experts who've helped review the report, which is launching today. So the slides that you will see now and the report itself are available in English from our website and also on social media. As you've just heard, SMEs are representing 99% of registered companies in Spain. They represent 65% of the total employment, 62% of the gross value added of businesses in Spain, and over 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions. As Oliver Schwab, who's the Director General of the World Economic Forum, said in 2022, these SMEs really are shaping our future growth. They're full of innovation, and sustainability of their businesses is totally essential for us to have the future that we want. So there is a gap, however, in terms of what Pamela has identified and you've heard from other speakers. SMEs at the moment do not receive sufficient attention, according to the European Commission, and we certainly need additional actions for training and to research what's going on inside of the SME world. That's something that we have been doing in Spain, but that Spanish work connects to the work that's preceded us from COP26 in the UK, and as you've heard from Pamela, is described in many countries. So the objective of this project over this last year has been to explore the actual climate action going on and the challenges that the Spanish SMEs have faced in not just the current energy crisis, but also to be proactive to mobilize best practices ahead of these meetings in Sharm el-Sheikh. We've used a questionnaire that's touched 450 companies, including 309 SMEs in Spain. We had a consultation process that has been supported by 90 SME platforms and hubs across Spain. We've had 30 informal meetings and interviews with SMEs across our work through 9 workshops that's been hosted by our partners, who you'll see in a minute. And that's led to 9 case studies that are available for full disclosure in our report. As you can see from this map, this is essentially how we've covered Spain. So the photographs are the pictures of the SMEs whose stories and narrative you can read in the report, and some of whom are joining us today for this presentation, and some of the local hubs that have been supporting us in this project. So as you can see from our survey, nearly 80% of SMEs are already feeling the impacts of the energy crisis in Spain. A lot of them to some degree, and 40% of them to a fair amount. And also you can see the Spanish press is picking up on this. 60% of these SMEs see climate change as a clear risk to their business. So in Spain, we've had the hottest summer in the last 50 years, and we are on the front line and exposed to climate impacts. So many leading SMEs have already identified the benefits of acting and have started to take action. The left-hand graph shows that 28% have a net zero emissions target for 2050 or sooner, and 41% have partial targets. However, there are still 30% that don't have targets. But with respect of it's not just about targets, it's about, does your company have a concerted climate action plan? So 62% do not. 18% of the 62 didn't know what a climate action plan was in our survey, but on the positive side, 38% already do. In terms of those specific areas for action, this is a chart that shows what actions are being implemented today in Spanish SMEs. 40% of them are involved in waste circularity and recycling. 38% of them have taken energy efficient actions. 31% are using renewable energy. 26% are using sustainable transport solutions. 21% are looking for green suppliers. However, 20% have done none of these, and 15% are doing eco-design. Nevertheless, 58% of the SMEs that we surveyed have not yet calculated their carbon footprint. So when we looked at climate governance and we looked to see what processes and procedures were in place in SMEs, 29% had consulted with their stakeholders, 24% had disclosed their emissions, 33% had designated a green defender within their management team, 18% had disclosed some form of climate action, 11% had linked that with executive pay and climate targets, and 10% had linked that with employees' pay. So these are the drivers of SME action compared with barriers and then what is necessary going forwards. The main drivers from the Spanish SMEs, in the case of 21% is their customers, around just under 20% their employees, 13% their suppliers, 10% the government, and there are other smaller stakeholders as well that are relevant. In terms of barriers, what's preventing greater action, nearly half said it was due to a lack of funding, and 43% said it was due to a lack of knowledge. So in terms of our report, what could be needed? Well, clearly external financial support is a good option. Legislative support is something coming in Europe. Adapted guides and practices is something being developed, and tools by the SME Climate Hub, as you've heard, and locally in Spain there are plenty of those. And of course, training is important. So in order to help the Spanish SMEs, my team and I started to adapt a guide that was presented in COP26. This guide contained the 12 key steps for the leading companies delivering net zero emissions. So what Pamela said is that there are a lot of international standards, and a lot of them are shown here on the left-hand chart. That can be confusing, not just for small companies, but also for big ones. So what we did for COP26 and launched it there with 37 Spanish companies, large and small, whose total revenues exceeded 300 billion euros, was present a best practice guide that summarizes what large Spanish companies were doing. Then this year, we've been talking to SMEs, and we've been simplifying that guide into 3 simple pillars. Pillar 1 is relating to the reduction targets for SMEs and has 4 simple actions that all SMEs undergoing this process shall consider, including the calculation of their direct and indirect emissions, aligning their science-aligned targets, assessing their climate risks and opportunities in a structured way, and looking at offsetting in the context of just residual emissions. The second pillar of our work was around climate action, so simple actions that can be taken. Climate action plans clearly need to be economically justified in the longer term. They need to have external support, which is available through government support funds here in Spain. A stakeholder dialogue is necessary to ensure the fair transition. An action roadmap that considers energy efficiency, renewable energy, eco-transport options, eco-design, waste circularity, and other green suppliers is important. And looking at adaptation targets and the climate risks, the physical climate risks that are represented. And thirdly, in the final pillar, in very simple terms, having some form of climate governance is important. We like the idea of a green champion. That's somebody that just represents the climate action and the stakeholder dialogues within a company. Having quantitative performance indicators, presenting them and evaluating performance against plan is important. And of course, communicating your actions is something that gives other people examples, and that's what we'll be doing just after this presentation in today's event. So there is a growing interest to join the SME Climate Hub from Spanish SMEs. So we talked to just over 300, and 56% of them actually said that they would consider learning more about the SME Climate Hub in the idea to join it. So I think what we've heard from Pamela is, and what we've identified here from a growing number of SMEs, is the clear interest that they have to join that global movement. Finally, to close, we have 9 recommendations that we think in Spain will help Spanish SMEs accelerate their decarbonization. The first is to have groups, in sectoral groups of SMEs who have shared and common areas and interests to take similar steps. That can be supported by best practice networks. This is something that's been experimented in many countries, where similar companies facing similar challenges get together to discuss on a regional or a sectoral basis their climate action and the ways in which they go about monitoring and developing that progress and getting over the barriers. Being transparent is key. We think SMEs are going to be incentivized in Europe through increased non-financial reporting requirements, but and that of their suppliers and supply chains, but also to develop a decarbonization framework with clear and aligned performance indicators. In support of that, one thing that we know as an SME ourselves is that our accountants and external auditors have played a very important role for us and for the SMEs that you're going to hear from later. They can provide the data and the inputs necessary either for a tool like the normative one or for carbon accounting services that they might provide in order to enable a CO2 footprint calculation. Public funding is critical and should be targeted at the SME sectors that have a significant climate mitigation contribution. Not all companies have a large climate footprint, and with respect to rationalizing public funding, that needs to be focused on those that will have the most material advantages, and the best practice networks can group around the most material greenhouse gas emission reduction potentials. Finally, we need best practice guidelines for offsetting. Offsetting has been a big feature of our work, and a number of our SME members, or should we say respondents, have been doing that, but I think they all are keen to have greater guidance. And finally, more collaboration and research initiatives to deepen the knowledge on climate adaptation are really important. We have a national plan in Spain on adaptation, and adaptation is, should we say, the conversation which we're most having during these COP meetings, and I think it's important for SMEs to be involved with that. And of course, we do need to have a fiscal framework which is aligned with doing the right thing via the climate. VAT relief on green products, accelerated depreciation on energy efficiency activities are some of the things that have cropped up in order to encourage green practices among SMEs. And finally, we love the fact that our SME friends are joining us here today, and we think there should be more national events and awards to give recognition and visibility to SME leaders in climate action and innovation. So to conclude, if those of you watching could use the QR code, so take your phone and sort of direct it towards the screen, you'll be able to download the copy of the report. And you'll be able to read further, and we encourage you to engage with us on social media at ClimateST, Climate Strategy for short. And I thank you all for joining us today and look forward to any questions you have in the chat.
Thank you, Peter, for this great overview of our report. Now we're going to listen to the climate experience of two leading Spanish SMEs that we have identified during our consultation process and that we include as case studies in this report that Peter has just explained. I would like to welcome Marcel Comte, partner in Omplim, a micro SME based in Barcelona that focuses on the management throughout the life cycle of real estate projects for sale and rent. I would also like to welcome Luis Unceta, partner director of Isimar, an SME with 52 employees based in the region of Navarra that is specialized in the production of design furniture. Welcome to both of you, and I would like to start with one question describing your ecological transition, how it began, the factors that drove it, and the key climate actions that you have implemented. Marcel, if you could please begin, and then we can move on with Luis.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I would like to thank you, Climate Strategy, for the invitation and congratulate them for the organization, just to start. For answering the first question, I would like to present very briefly Omplim, who we are, what we do, and the purpose of our business. So Omplim is a company founded in 2017, based in Barcelona, that manages the entire production cycle of real estate projects with the purpose to transform the way we build and develop real estate in order to preserve their inclusivity, sustainability, and quality. Our climate action is incorporated, let's say, in our DNA from our foundation. It's in our corporate status. And during the COP25 held in Madrid in 2019, we made public our commitment to reduce our greenhouse emissions to zero by 2030, along with some other Spanish B Corps, let's say. And all the actions that we have implemented since then have been in line with this commitment, no? to reduce as much as possible our environmental impact. And now I will try this it's an introduction. I will try to, in the following minutes, to summarize it and to give this at the same time a complete overview of our approach to climate action, let's say. So in our case, we have to differentiate strictly the impact that we generate through our activity as, let's say, project managers, and the impact that generates our products, services, and in this case, the real estate projects that we develop. Even if the specific approach for each is slightly different, the scheme is the same. No? Let's say we define actions to reduce our impact, we monitor, we track, and we define objectives to achieve this reduction. For our activity as project managers, the actions are more linked to the operating activities. For the real estate projects, it's more focused on the design and the definition of this project. So, and regarding the monitoring of the impact for our activity, we do it with an internal tool that is integrated in our ERP, and we use the SME Climate Hub tool as a double check for our internal tool. And this allows us to calculate the emissions for Scope 1 and Scope 2, and to estimate rigorously the Scope 3 via our purchases. And for the real estate projects, we calculate the life cycle analysis in all the phases that allow us to have detailed overview of the global impact that the promotions generate. No? This is a bit how we structure the calculation and the supervision of that, and to explain a bit the actions that we give for each part. I will say that, well, it's on a slide a bit up. It's more about in our activity. Let's say we have implemented a sustainability purchasing policy that is, let's say, focused on local purchasing, second-hand, ecological materials, renting electric vehicles. We have changed the office in order to be in a low energy demand office. We incentivize virtual meetings and remote working. So these are specific actions that we implement in our activity. And regarding the definition of the real estate projects, that, let's say, it's a huge impact, environmental impact. We try to ensure sustainable supply chain. We define an eco-consumption of the buildings. We implement industrialization, and we try to make a responsible consumption in all of that. And this, we try to follow the European framework that is levels, that allows us to, let's say, be as rigorous as possible in this kind of definition.
Thank you so much.
I think that this is a bit, I have done it very quickly, but it's a bit, some words about that.
Thank you so much, Marcel, very detailed. And now let's have Luis explain to us the ecological transition at Isimar. Thank you, Luis.
Thank you, Adriana, and thank you, Peter and Pamela and Alejandro, everybody that has been able for Marcel and me as SMEs in Spain to share our experience with everybody, our humble experience, because I'm sure there are other companies that are doing a lot of things and maybe more than us, but this is at least our experience on the sustainability actions for an SME in Spain. Just to make it short, we are Isimar. We are in the north of Spain. This is a 60-year-old company, and 12 years ago, we changed the ownership and management, and we changed the company strategy from making chicken coops with wire and metal to make outdoor design furniture. So since the beginning, when we decided the strategy, we worked on 3 pillars, or 3 values, we call it. The first one was to be authentic. So we wanted to keep our roots, our genes, our manufacturing, local manufacturing, making sure that we work with the local community and the employees and the families that they were there. The second pillar, we call it Be Design. And Be Design meant for us to take all of this authenticity and the know-how of all those years that we had when we bought the company and put them to work on a product that we could keep manufacturing, and most important, to use all the know-how and the knowledge of all those people during those so many years. And the third, which is the value that we're talking here, we call it be respectful. So we brought all the values around be respectful within not only sustainability in terms of climate, but also in terms of all the sustainable development objectives from the UN that we worked with a consulting firm already some years ago to decide where were we on those objectives and what we could do on those objectives. So if we talk about those objectives and going towards the climate, we decided to work with materials, which in our case is steel and aluminum, making sure that our suppliers could confirm or could certify that they were 100% recycled, and also is recyclable, of course. We also, from the beginning, designed the products from a circularity point of view, and all our products can be reused or can be scrapped, can be reutilized as recyclable very easily. In terms of energy and footprint, lately, and thanks to SME Hub tools on the website, we have calculated our footprint, it was something very difficult, and I think it's you said it, Peter, an issue for the SMEs to make sure how to start. Where is your starting point? So we started working on being more efficient in terms of, we changed all the LED in the company. We started doing these simple and quick winners. Then we moved into what we can do in terms of electricity. And then we decided, like 5 years ago, to make sure that we bought only electricity from renewable energy certified. A big change has been this year, and it's pushed us, of course, the cost of the electricity and the different utilities. And we have installed on our rooftop 730 kilowatts of PV photovoltaic panels, which is making us 65% self-efficient. And also we have so much energy that we can sell this energy to our local industrial park, our neighbors, and we are only consuming 25% of that total production, and 75% we are already sharing that with our local people. Lately, and just to finish this question, Adriana, we have started working on a plastic-free packaging policy, which is kind of difficult to make, to be honest. But we want to make sure that our chairs and our tables, which are already using materials recycled and recyclable, are not being sent over the world with so much plastic. And now we have achieved 95% of plastic free on the packaging. Still some areas that we have to work on, and still many challenges, but we're here to learn from these conversations and to get inspired by people like you. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Now that you mentioned challenges, I would just like to ask one very brief question for you to answer in 1 minute, because we're short in time. Could you let me know one challenge or one barrier you have identified for the future decarbonization of your SME, one resource that will help you overcome it, and one advice for those SMEs watching us across the world? Marcel, 1 minute, and then Luis, another minute. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. I will say that, of course, initially to implement these policies and actions needs a first investment, basically know-how, people that can assess you, or consultancy of experts that can give you a few details about how you have to manage it. And after that, it's just about putting it in your managing day by day. It's like we have interiorized that we can do classic accountability, productivity, KPIs, etc., etc. So it's just introducing this in your business day by day, and everything goes faster and easily. I think that I have been in the time.
Thank you, Marcel. And now, Luis, what about your answer to this question?
Yeah. Well, first, the big challenge for an SME like us, which we are manufacturers, is the use of gas, natural gas. We use it in our process for painting. It's the oven that is being heated by natural gas. And it's a challenge for companies, medium companies like us, how to reduce that or even change the use of gas. So we are working on being more efficient, the oven. We're doing some investments there. But also we are looking, and this is just, I leave it here on this call. If anybody wants to use an SME from Spain for the green hydrogen project, because we only hear that it's only for big companies, but I think we have to prove the concept also in SMEs. So I'm here and putting my company on this call as a testing company. And the recommendations, which is hard to say recommendation. The only thing I would say for the people who don't believe on renewable energy is the best investment you can do ever. I haven't heard any other investment in the later years. And you can pay it back in 3-4 years, even without grants, although it's always welcome, the grants. So that's my own recommendation. Don't wait any minute to put solar panels on your roof.
Luis and Marcel, it's been a real pleasure working with you and with the other 7 Spanish SMEs whose case studies appear in our report. I have to say that the most interesting part of all of our work was not the surveys, was listening to those of you who've made these proactive climate investments and are now seeing the benefit, both in terms of increased resilience at a time of volatile energy prices, but also developing new business models and having a greater and deeper relationship with your customers and seeing how your product develops sustainably for the future. So to both of you, thank you for contributing to our work. Thank you for your sustainable leadership. And I look forward to ensuring that you and the others in Spain make greater connections and we have visibility. But back to you, Adriana.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to both of the SMEs with us today here. To finalize today's session, I will give the word to Álvaro Rodríguez, the General Coordinator for Spain in the Climate Reality Project, a global NGO founded by Al Gore that wants to catalyze a global solution to a climate crisis by making urgent action a necessity across every sector of society. Welcome, Álvaro.
Thank you very much, Adriana. It's a very big pleasure to be here today. Today we have listened the voices of a net that represent more than 450 voices, all conscious of the challenge that the climate crisis will mean for all of us. So small companies are doing a huge effort to face this big challenge that all humankind has never seen. Today we have seen 2 very concrete examples of enterprises that are doing possible the economy and the future of the planet is really something that we are seeing is possible. So if it is possible and the examples we have in the table show that, it means that we have hope. So it's very important to know that many companies, small, medium companies, are doing this in all the world. It's like we know, because climate reality, we represent more than 40,000 volunteers trained by Al Gore, just to explain with examples like this one, how we can win this battle. It's probably the most important battle we have ever seen in the world. So what we are seeing every day is very hard. We are seeing hurricanes, droughts, rains like ever, fires, heat waves. This is something we are seeing. We are seeing it all day by day, and it's not normal. We cannot normalize this. And all of that has been created because of hunger of fossil fuels, coal, fuel, and natural gas. It's something crazy. It's just insane. But I really think after one day like today that there is a hope. There is a really hope. We can say to our daughters, to our children, that there is a hope in a better tomorrow. So really, please, look at the solutions. Look at the full report we have produced. It is there, many examples that can be followed. But we have to give or future generations the opportunity of having such beautiful world as the world we have enjoyed. We have to fight against the climate crisis, as our future and our world depends on it, because the truth is that it depends on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alvaro, for this hopeful call to action, and to all the speakers present here today for contributing to the launch of our report. And thank you, of course, to everyone watching us today across the world during COP27. I invite you to download our report in our website at climatestrategy.com and to engage in social media at ClimateST, so the conversation on SME's climate action continues. Goodbye, everyone, and thank you.